Welcome to the Hometown Gym Podcast, the place where we teach parents and those new to fitness the best practices of physical health so that you can have the ability to run around and keep up with your kids and grandkids, and so that you can smile when you look at yourself in the mirror, and most importantly, that you live a pain-free, happy, and long life. Tonight, I'm joined by Andrew Doubek. Andrew is a doctor of physical therapy. He's practicing out of Alpena, Michigan. And he's a man who's driven by his passion to help those living with physical dysfunction to increase their mobility, quality of life, and happiness. And tonight it's my pleasure to welcome Andrew to Hometown Gym. Andrew, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you, Brandon.
How are you? How's your night going?
I'm good. It's going well.
Glad to hear, man. Work today? What are we doing?
Yep. So I worked. I work 4 10s, which is great, but it's been a long day, and it's a pleasure to be on the show.
I would love to have the opportunity to work 4 10s. How do you like that work schedule?
Oh, it's awesome. It's awesome because I can I can see people both at the early morning hours and then the late hours. So it's cool because I get to see people, before they go to work, and then the people that don't do as well in the morning, and I can see them after too. And then I get my days off to do some independent projects, which has worked out really well for me.
That's something that, we won't talk about my business so far, but, I work a traditional 9 to 5, and it's tough to hit those people that also have a 9 to 5, or in our area, Andrew, we got a lot of people that are in government contracting. They're in what's called a skiff for long portions of the day. So they got to go to a place like no windows, nothing to see. So that's cool that you can see that wide array of people kind of within those hours, man.
Right. Yep.
Cool. Well, I mentioned that you were from Alpena, Michigan. For those of you who don't know, I am also from Michigan, and that's kind of up in the northeast corner. What was it like to grow up in Alpena, Andrew?
Um, Alpena is kind of interesting because it's the biggest city in our area, but still considered a rural community, and interesting now because it's medically underserved. So that kind of um, changes how I get to treat people compared to a lot of my friends. But as far as growing up, it was awesome. It's got kind of a small town feel with most of the big city amenities. You could say there's a lot to do outside. We live on Lake Huron, so we get all of the advantages of living on one of the Great Lakes, which is awesome, and then a bunch of rivers and fun outdoor stuff to do here. So yeah, it's a pretty great place to grow up.
When you say it's a big city in the rural area, what's the population of Alpena? Any idea?
So I don't know what the most recent census was, but I think it's around 10,000 people. So I'm sure we might
Yeah,
be laughing at saying it's a
yeah, yeah. We're in like the densest area out of Northern Virginia, and so people over here are like, that's a city, but in that particular area, it definitely is, and it's an awesome place to be, especially on the lake. What kind of things did you do when you were growing up, Andrew?
So I did a lot of outdoor stuff, like a lot of camping, ton of fishing. We played sports growing up. I played soccer and hockey and volleyball. So just really a lot of outdoor stuff.
You played volleyball even up in Alpena on a team for fun. What'd you do there?
Hmm. Well, so we've actually got one of, uh, ironically enough, we've got one of the bigger beach volleyball leagues within a couple hundred miles. So I know
That's
we
wild.
did for a while. We had some people coming from Traverse City to play beach volleyball, and my mom was the high school coach here in town, so I got to get some extra gym time too. So that was fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you mentioned, let's see, soccer, volleyball, hockey. What was it like growing up for you as an athlete?
You know what? It was a great way to meet people. Uh, Growing up, I was a terrible athlete, really uncoordinated, pretty slow, pretty weak. Um, but it kind of had an impact on me long term because I met some of my best friends through through sports throughout the years. So I have really pretty fond memories of that.
We're gonna touch back on that because my first impression of you was actually not that at all. At least athletically. What was school like for you growing up? School for me, Andrew, was not my favorite thing. But for you, I think it was a little bit different. Talk to me about that.
Um, School was always probably one of um, my bigger focuses, I guess. So both my parents were teachers at the high school here. So that was always kind of one of our family values is education and doing well in school. So I spent a ton of time studying in my younger years, especially like junior high, high school. I spent a ton of time studying, um, and it was just kind of something I got used to. And actually, as kind of I went through my undergrad and grad degrees, ironically enough, it actually got easier, which was nice in a way.
I never would ever have guessed that it would get easier, especially go ultimately going to physical therapy school. I mean, we attended a really, I think, good university at Grand Valley. That's where Andrew and I met. Well, we'll dive into that a little bit as well. Um, Ultimately, we met at Grand Valley State University. How did you determine that that was the place that you wanted to go to begin your studies and go there for undergrad?
Um, I don't want to say flipping a coin necessarily,
But is that
but
actually what happened?
I was basically kind of like deciding between Lake State, Grand Valley, and Michigan State. So kind of like a smaller college, medium college, and then a really big college. And I kind of chose the one in the middle. So I there was nothing in particular that led me there, but I went on a tour with my uncle when I was younger, and I thought the campus was pretty nice, and I kind of just went for it.
You made the right choice, not just because you met me. How much time have you spent up in the Sioux at Lake State?
We spent a reasonable amount of time playing hockey. That's so when we grew up, we did a lot of traveling for hockey. We that's basically where we played the most games out of town, I would say, is the Sioux.
Is that the really big rival for Alpena? Is it the Sioux?
Um, I would say through the years it's changed
Yeah,
a little bit. As far as like high school hockey, I think probably more like the Traverse Cities and Marquette were a little bit more
I got
rival.
you.
Yeah, Lakes or the Sioux is probably a little bit smaller school, so we didn't play them as often.
Okay. Yeah, I'm trying to remember back to when I was an assistant coach with Pete and Alex for that one weekend
Yeah.
out in the west side of Michigan. They were saying something about playing in the Sioux, but it must have just been the culture, something along those lines. My memory of Lake Superior State was it's okay, but Grand Valley, out of Allendale or the Grand Rapids area is it's just a much nicer area, and I apologize to all my northern Michigan friends and family in saying that, but that was my experience, kind of in seeing both. And then I grew up just outside of East Lansing, which was Michigan State, and might be like the widest campus. I think it like stretches like 10 miles. Like Grand Valley, you can get on a longboard and go end to end in about, 20
Yep.
minutes. But Michigan State, you gotta like jump on two buses and you can have a lecture that's just miles and miles away. Um, how was your experience at Grand Valley?
It was um it was pretty good. I think I had a hard time trying to figure out what I wanted to do, and that made some of my studies hard because I took a lot of classes that I had a hard time focusing in when you don't know what you want to do. Um, but it was great in the way that I still got to play a lot of sports, still had a lot of friends that I met playing sports. I got to work in the bio labs there, which was awesome. My bosses were really awesome, and I got to get kind of a taste of what like an academic researcher position looked like. So in that way, it kind of gave me some ideas on what I wanted to do and built some strong friendships and professional relationships.
Where did you start studying?
So I thought initially, like I said, both my parents are teachers. So I thought initially that I was going to be a teacher. Um, so
Yeah.
I took a lot of like generalist classes, tried to get most of my prerequisites out of the way. And then probably going through a little more, I was convinced that I wanted to do research. Um, and so I kind of it was pretty biology heavy. And then I guess part way through there, I just realized I really didn't have to do that if I didn't want to. Realized that really there wasn't as much like interaction with people as I was interested in, and that's kind of where I changed my mind.
When you were working in the lab, was that kind of where you got the research start, and like, what about that was like, yes, this is the direction I want to go?
So I loved working in the lab, um, and I for a while I loved setting up, like, taking stuff down, um, the process of research. I always thought research is kind of pure in the way that like it's discovery at like one of its purest forms. And that's cool because there's not a lot of careers that I've seen that you can just like touch discovery like that, which is sweet, I think. Um, Ultimately, I realized that a lot of the people that I was working with, like the full-time professors, didn't get like a ton of interaction with people in their day-to-day jobs other than students. And I kind of decided like, I kind of thought that I was interested in something else. Um, at that point, so in my junior year, I kind of again push came to shove, and I had to make some decisions on what I needed to do long term. And my dad was going to have a hip replacement at 40, which is
That's mind boggling. And for those who don't know, like, do you know what like the average age is of somebody who would need a hip replacement, Andrew? Typically.
I I I don't know the statistics. I would say like anecdotally, I would say probably like 60. But
Right.
for very young.
40's young. That's really young, man.
Yeah. And so I was off on break. Um, I think spring break actually, and my dad told me, he's like, "Hey, you should come check out this therapy thing that I'm doing." And like any good son, I said no. And then and then finally I got home and I was like, well, I don't really have plans. I might as well go check it out. And my dad was a pretty athletic guy, still works out quite a bit, still does a lot of cardio. And so I got to see a piece of what I do now, where it's kind of an awesome meld between like a lot of fitness, which I enjoy. I like exercising quite a bit and kind of interacting with people and helping people. So it seemed like a perfect combination to me, and that's kind of where I made the decision that that's kind of the direction I wanted to go in.
So junior year, you figure that out. That's probably about the same time where you and I met.
Yeah.
Describe to me, Andrew, what was your reaction when we had our first interaction together?
Um, well, I think it was, if I remember right, it was pretty overwhelming because I met a a few of my friends all at the same time. A lot of energy, a lot of energy. But I feel
Yeah.
like honestly, like at first it was really the sports that connected us because we started playing soccer together. And that's kind of what I remember about us first meeting.
That's right. And I think the earliest like memory that I can remember is like meeting like in an intramural game,
Yeah.
right? And like so like I'd never played organized soccer growing up. So like when I got to intramural stuff, I like that was, I was just living life so hard through that and just wanted to win. So I played really hard. And And I can't
Yeah.
remember because we were playing against your guys' team. And I remember like going up against you and just thinking, man, like this dude works really hard. And I'm not a huge fan of him covering me because like even if I could beat you, like you would, you chase me down and would try to win the ball. And
Yeah.
I still don't remember if it was like you or if it was Matt Kyvenhoven, but I remember one of you two going straight by me and I deliberately like pulled his shirt, yanked
Yeah.
you down, right? Because the rule is ball goes by you, man goes by you, but not both.
That's
And
right.
I was like, all right, like worst that happens is I get a card. I didn't get a card. It just called a
Yeah.
foul. And I was like, all right, well, I'll probably never talk to that guy again. And
Yeah.
lo and
And here
behold,
we are.
one of my closest friends for nearly over a decade. So
Yeah. Yeah.
ironically, about the same time as you're making your decision to move into human movement and in physical therapy. So you get to your junior year, and then from there, ultimately, where'd you end up to continue your studies?
So I went to U of M Flint. Um, I think now there's maybe 8 or 9 schools in Michigan, and kind of like they've all got like a little bit of reputation for what they're strong and weak in. U of M Flint is probably a little better known for like their neurological, their neuro rehab skills. We've got some really awesome professors in that area. And my mom was a psych teacher growing up, so I always thought neural rehab was really kind of cool. And again, kind of around that time, one of my mom's better friends actually passed away from a brain tumor, and she had spent a bunch of time at Mary Free Bed doing rehab, and I always thought that that was really cool that helped gain her some function back. So that was a school that I was really interested in. So that's where I ended up, was U of
Yeah,
M Flint.
and for those who don't know, Andrew, when you say neurological therapy, what do you mean by that when you say that?
So anyone who's been affected by some sort of neurological disease, like some real easy examples are like strokes
Yeah.
or Parkinson's, multiple sclerosis, traumatic brain injury, anything that kind of affects the nervous system and brain.
What kinds of therapy and can you even kind of implement for something like that? And this is more for me than the audience. I haven't given this a whole lot of thought and didn't know you could really affect things like Parkinson's. My mother-in-law's mom passed away from that. How do you help something like that?
So I didn't realize it at the time, but a couple of years in my career, I realized how cool therapy is for neural rehab. It's one of the very, very few occupations where you can actually change the anatomy of the brain, which I think is just wild. So
That is wild.
if you think about like a condition like a stroke, where there's technically nothing wrong with the body itself, the damage has been done to the neurons in the brain, and the brain is so amazingly plastic, meaning those neurons can regrow, or they can change their connection points. And so really, through changing your movement pattern and through cardiovascular exercise to change your neurotransmitters, you can actually change the actual anatomy of the brain through exercise, which I think is just amazing. Similar like in a condition like Parkinson's, where there's a lack of neurotransmitter, um, you can help that uptake of the neurotransmitter, um, and really help someone quite a bit.
Hey, listeners, first, thanks so much for listening to the show. A quick reminder here, if you're new to the gym or you're not sure what to do or how to start, navigate over to hometown.gym.net. This is our website where we have fitness programs for beginners, where you can start with a sample class at no cost to you with support 7 days per week. In addition to that, we have even more free content through the website over there. Again, that's hometown.gym.net. Thanks so much. We're back to our show. reason that we do what we do, right? That's really, really cool work. So was there a particular study for that at U of M Flint, or how did that wrap into the program that you were going through at U of M Flint?
So there's still, so when you go through PT, there's still like what they would call like entry level education. So we're all going to get musculoskeletal training. We're all going to get cardiovascular training. We're all going to get neuromuscular training. Um, it just kind of depends. Like basically, we're all trained for like basic skills in the workforce and making sure that we can like pass our accrediting boards. But then, past that, there's additional focus. So I know as I was leaving, they were amping up they've got like a neuro sig group, so like a special interest group for people interested in treating people with Parkinson's and stroke and MS. So I was just getting into that as I was leaving. But I was also really lucky enough. Ironically, I never left the research field. I kind of hung on to that a little bit. So one of our neuro professors specialized in evaluation of balance assessment. So that's actually kind of probably if you could, so to speak, say where I made my money in my career is yeah, the research I did in grad school was on balance assessment and validating that. So that's kind of where I've specialized so far.
Awesome. So we get done with U of M Flint.
Mhm.
What happens after that?
So I did my clinical rotations as our last part of our education. I did my last rotation in Alpena, which is where I grew up. And the clinic that my dad, mom, grandpa, grandma, brother all did their therapy. So I'm doing my last rotation there. They can't get rid of me. I get hired there. Um, and it's a kind of an interesting clinic here. We're at a private outpatient clinic, and our clinic is in a smaller town. So we see a wide range of people, and we kind of have a generalist approach, but we have enough really skilled clinicians that we can kind of fall into specialty areas, which is really cool. So we have a sports therapist here, a therapist who does pediatric rehab, really one of the most talented pelvic floor therapists that I know. She won't tell anyone, but she's the rep for the Midwest region of the U.S. So that's pretty cool to have
It's awesome.
someone like that in a small town. And I actually fell really easy into the neuro realm because there was really no one doing that, just therapists who kind of had to treat strokes when they came in and had to treat Parkinson's when they came in. And I was like, hey, I'm interested in that. Um, let's add on to that. So I now treat most of our patients from the neuro world, also vestibular rehabilitation. So I don't know if you've heard anything about vestibular rehab, but it's
No, when you
a
say
lot.
that again, what does that mean?
So that's like in really overly simplified terms, basically like a lot of your sense of equilibrium.
Okay.
So your kind of idea where you are in space. So like overwhelmingly, the statistics are kind of show like there's a condition called positional vertigo, basically where you change head position and you don't know where you are in space. Um, that is like the overwhelming number of cases that people see as far as like ER visits and also like going into primary care. And it's actually relatively easy to treat as far as like a real simple positioning maneuver. So I see a lot of those patients, and then my clinical specialty. So I passed my boards in 2024, a geriatric certified specialist. So specializing in treating people over 65. So that's kind of the niche that I fell into when I came back into town.
Going back to working with people with the oh goodness, the word's going to escape me, the vertigo
Mhm.
related implications. Is that people who have vertigo, or is it just some sort of alignment where they're getting vertigo like symptoms?
It could be a number of different things. So like the top reasons that people will get so like it normally what people know is kind of like dizzy. Dizzy is an easy term that describes a lot of different things. So a lot of times people come in the door, they'll say I'm dizzy. So I'm kind of trying to decide between like, is that blood pressure related? So you stand up, blood pressure goes down, people get dizzy. That's a quick referral to a cardiologist. Could it be like something related to a stroke? So like a vascular issue. There are a number of vestibular issues that create dizziness as far as like viral or like a Meniere's where you've got damage to the system itself. But then again, like the most common, so like the positional vertigo is actually a mechanical issue. So there's a organ in your inner ear called the vestibular system that basically acts for the most simple part with these set of canals where you've got these crystals hanging and you move your head and those crystals give an impulse to your brain telling your head where it is in space. And so like you were saying, that's actually like a mechanical issue. So the crystals break loose, we put the crystals back, so to speak. Um, and then people kind of recover from that pretty quickly.
Again, my something new for the day. Didn't realize that you could affect stuff like that, and it's so cool to
Yeah.
see what you can adjust just through therapy, fitness, moving. That's really awesome, man. Eh, Going back just a little bit, Andrew, a lot of what we're going to end up talking about on the podcast is just kind of fear or failure or overcoming something. I have to
Mhm.
imagine that when you're in PT school and I don't know, adjusting somebody for the first time, or just kind of going through that programming, what was something that you had to kind of overcome either in PT school or as you're practicing, that either you were really afraid of or maybe something you weren't so good at?
Um, I would say that on like a professional level, I think one of the biggest things that I have seen with not only myself but a ton of clinicians is actually underdosing um, geriatrics. So like anyone over 65 or what we would consider like clinically frail. So that doesn't even have to be, that can be people under, I've seen people in their 40s and 50s who you would consider clinically frail through some sort of hospitalization. And there's a real fear, I think, in a lot of clinicians that they're going to hurt them. But that life is short, and I think people will actually do more damage by underdosing people in a lot of instances. And the way to kind of alleviate that fear for me was just to kind of like respect what the body's telling you. So kind of monitoring vitals, consistently asking people, kind of helping them with their body awareness, like how are you feeling? Like is that muscular fatigue or is that joint pain? Because that's a huge difference. And that's going to help because if it's muscular soreness, let's hit the gas. If that's joint pain, we got to pump the brakes. Um, so like if there are real simple tricks that you can use to help with underdosing that when I was an early clinician, it was a ton of fear. Like, you're afraid um, that you're going to break someone. People are tough. People are really tough. And you can't go out there like a maniac. But at the same point, if you're underdosing people, you're doing them a real disservice.
So when you were going through that and as an early clinician and maybe a little bit afraid, I mean, was it just as simple as just being like, hey, I need to just make sure that I'm putting these plans in place to make sure they're getting more volume on their therapy. How'd you overcome that?
I think it's just, I honestly, that's, it's pretty simple. I think it's just a lot of communication. Um, you're afraid, a lot of times you're just afraid what someone will say. Um, I see a ton of people who haven't exercised in 40 years. Um, and they'll say, well, I don't like that. And so the easiest answer is like, you're afraid that person's not gonna like what you have to say. And your initial reaction is like, okay, let's back off. But then if you just ask some follow-up questions and kind of respect that person, um, it really is pretty easy. It's like, do you not like that because it's hurting you, or do you not like that because it's something different, and a little bit scary maybe? And if you just have that honest conversation with people, it really has nothing. It's funny because it really has nothing to do with my specialization as a clinician. It's just communication and respect for people, which is cool because that's a tool that everyone has. That has nothing to do with why why I paid so much money in student loans, really.
Just those EQ school or skills there, man. We talk about that stuff a lot, and that seems like so overly simple, but I'm sure it can just be terrifying, kind of in that moment where you have to, I don't know, push a little bit against an objection that you're having with a client who doesn't want to do something, even if it's in their best interest, right? So
Right.
good on you for doing that and improving your communication and just kind of discovering what was going to be best for them. We know that you've done a handful of research there, Andrew, and I know that personally. What kind of research have you done in the past year?
So I kind of again bumped into that unintentionally. Um, as I was treating patients through the years, and like I said, my specialty being like balance assessment in particular, I ran into so many people that their story kind of resonated where they're like, I didn't know what to do. I knew my balance was poor. I was afraid of falling, but I didn't know what to do. You go on Google and you can look up 100 crazy exercises and see people skydiving and saying it's really good for your lower back, and that's cool. I love it, but it's scary if you don't know what to do. So one of the things that I really felt called to was I really didn't feel like the traditional model of healthcare was adequate. Um, treating someone once they're broken seems really backwards to me. I never that never sat well with me. Um, so unfortunately, ironically, maybe a year or two after I moved back into town, the leader of the exercise class at the senior center passed away, and they were looking kind of for um, someone to fill that role. And the woman who took over there um, really motivated, um, and was just kind of like, hey, I need a little help because I want to make this safe and I want to make this really worthwhile for everyone. I know how to motivate people, but I just need a little help kind of getting this off the ground. Um, so we started what we call like the Empowered Movement Program, which at that time included an exercise, like a geriatric exercise class 3 times a week. And then one of the components that I really wanted to implement was giving people, kind of an idea of where they're at to see how they're improving or not improving and need to change accordingly. So we got some grant funding to do basically like balance screens in addition with the exercise class, which turned out really awesome. We I thought at max we would get like 30 people, and we ended up with 130 people on the
That's
first day.
awesome. Wow.
And for probably about a year, it was fluctuating between like 70 and 90 people working out Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, which for a town of 1,000 is kind of unbelievable.
That's incredible. And that's kind of ultimately kind of the message that we're delivering here at Hometown Gym, is to do something similar. And that's awesome that they're taking action and going out there and getting after it with the young lady who took over that program and then used you as a resource to kind of get that going, which led
Mhm.
you to research. That's awesome, man. What else?
Um, so after that, again, I I kind of continue to run into problems that are tend to be fortuitous in my nature, unfortunately. Um, but one of my mentors, the one actually that I did my research under at UBM Flint, and I were talking one day, kind of discussing like the empowered movement program. Turned out really amazing, but it still didn't, um, it didn't really hit still the most vulnerable population. So the people that are making it out into the community are still really on the top end of a lot of fitness levels. And we miss out on a lot of people who are homebound, or it's just like really difficult for them to get to those resources. We're still missing out on that, and we were kind of struggling with the fact that how do we share that with people who can't get into the exercise class. And as that was happening, that was around 2019, so everyone knows what happened there.
Yeah.
um, and ironically enough, as we got a really pretty large grant, and we were developing a plan where we got tablets and loaded an exercise program called the Otago program, which is one of the largest standardized balance programs for seniors. Um, and we did, it worked out amazing. We reached out through Meals on Wheels to identify some at-risk participants, and we did telehealth during the pandemic, which was just really kind of an amazing opportunity, and help those people with some fall risk over telehealth, which is amazing that we were able to help around 20 people who had never used a tablet before do an
Not
at-home program.
not an easy thing to do.
Not easy, no.
Hey, team, we're going to take a really quick break from the show for a quick ask from me. If you're really enjoying the show, please scroll down on Apple Podcast or Spotify, wherever you're watching or listening, and give us a 5-star review. Even better, if there's someone you know and love in your life who would benefit from any of our content or episodes, please take a minute, share your favorite clip with them. It would mean a lot to us and allow us the greater chance to affect as many lives as possible so that others can live a pain-free, happy, and long life. Thank you so much, and now we're back to the show.
Oh man, that's awesome work, Andrew. That's really cool.
Hmm.
What are you working on now?
So again, I think I schmoozed my professors pretty well, because I still have some pretty awesome relationships with a lot of them. And I'm working on a project with one of my prior professors from U of M Flint. She's at Central Michigan now. But we are doing a very, very similar program as the Empowered Movement program, where we are doing standardized tests for people with Parkinson's. And then what we're going to do with those standardized tests, we gave them some education kind of on what that meant for them, where they stood both on level of, are they at risk of falling, but also do they how do they match up to their peers? So people with Parkinson's at that age, like how do I line up to people in my peer group? And then what we're going to do is we're going to see them at 6 months out, and we're going to see them at a year out, and we're going to do the same thing. So we're going to do those tests, kind of put that information back into their hands. um, a lot of people don't know how they're doing and how well they're supposed to be doing. It's kind of a mystery in a lot of ways, like what should I really even be expecting? And so that's what we're working on right now. We did our first our first run in July, and we're excited. We gave people some resources to start working on, and then we'll probably see them around December now.
That's going to be awesome, man. Very good. What do you enjoy most about your work?
I think what I enjoy most about my work um, is probably getting to see like real life impact of what we do. And I know that sounds real generic, but um, it's easy to look at the numbers and say, yeah, we improved your 5 times sit to stand by 10 seconds. But then when you really dig into like goal-based therapy, which is one of my main focuses in the clinic is actually addressing people's real life goals. Five, 10 seconds on your 5 times sit to stand might placate your insurance company, but no one really cares about that. What people care about is like, a guy that I worked with a stroke who was able to stand at his counter and cook for the first time in 4 years since he had a stroke.
That's awesome.
Um,
Yeah.
or like a patient that I had worked with who her main goal was to dance with her grandson at his wedding. She didn't think she was going to do it. She didn't think she was going to stand at her grandson's wedding, much less be able to dance with him getting out of a wheelchair. Um, I think that those don't happen every day, and you kind of got to look for it. But like that's really what gives my career fulfillment.
I love it, man. What stuff are you doing individually for yourself, from a movement perspective, fitness, working out? What's Andrew Doubek doing?
Um, so I work out a little manically, which I think is a bit of a professional hazard. But I really believe in cross training.
Yeah.
So for myself, I run probably 2, 3 times a week. Um, I've been biking probably 2, 3 times a week. If I had to be 100% honest, I like lifting weights the most, so I'm probably lifting 3 to 4 times a week. And then, depending on what season it is, I'll probably play a sport or two. So I missed out on volleyball season this year. I missed out on soccer season this year. I'm gonna blame my brother for getting married. Say no to love. But then,
We will definitely blame Alex for that. I'll talk to him about that, Andrew. You don't worry about that, man.
yeah. But then, I'll play some hockey during the winter and ski a little bit during the winter. So I kind of try and mix it up a lot. But I would say as far as like what I've been focusing on in the last 2 years is kind of realizing that kind of taking a step back and recognizing that I'm probably not interested at this point in my life in being a professional athlete. I'm probably not interested in doing Olympic style or Olympic level lifts, and kind of like setting back and doing some goal setting and like what's the minimum and maximum I'm interested in doing, um, both on like a muscular and cardiovascular level. So that's kind of what I've been working on the last 2 years.
I love it, man. Is there anything in particular in the next, you're saying goal-based stuff that you're trying to accomplish?
Um, I I one of the things that I'm working on, it drives my car, but I'd really like to like set like a minimum level of deadlift to hit. So kind of for me, the reason being like who would be the minimum weight person that I would be able to lift off the floor, I think is kind of important to me. Um, so that's kind of important. And then I kind of in 2020, the World Health Organization came out for minimum guidelines for exercise, and one of those guidelines was they really upped their cardiovascular recommendations. So they're saying like 150 to 300 minutes of 70 to 80% heart rate max exercise a week, which like boils down to what like don't please don't fact check my math, but what is that, like 30 to 45 minutes, five times a week of like aerobic exercise, which
Yeah,
is
that's
kind of
about right.
intense. That's intense. But I think I'd like to do that. So I got a heart rate monitor so I can actually be pretty intentional about hitting that. So those are really my two big goals right now. And if I had to be honest, I'd love to hit like a 450-foot drive in disc golf.
Oh my goodness, that's got to be top echelon for that. Me too, by the way, which will probably not happen ever in my dreams. Um, going forward, Andrew, what's like it's a tough question to answer. Let me ask you this way: what would you maybe go back and tell, I don't know, 16, 17, 18-year-old Andrew to make sure that you're doing consistently for your functional health?
Um, I think honestly, I hate to keep coming back to this, but like I think like really what I believe in a lot is just goal-based fitness. Like I didn't know what I was doing or really why I was doing it. And I know part of that is just learning and growing up, but I would just run um really, really large distances without really knowing why I was doing it. I just didn't know what to do. Or I was really obsessed with bench press for a while, um, because it was cool to see that number go up. But again, I just didn't know why. Why are you doing that? And I would have probably focused a lot more on like building leg and hip musculature, just because I know that's huge for lower back pain. It's huge for sports performance. It's huge for power. So I probably would have focused more on that. But again, I guess that's kind of always part of growing is learning that, I suppose.
Love it, man. That is awesome, and I've got that written down as a part of our programming as to why people end up doing what they're going to do. Right? It's great to, I think for a lot of us, especially myself, like originally it was, I just wanted to be attractive, plain and simple. Most people kind of want that. Ultimately, I think it's a
Yeah.
byproduct of what we're ultimately going to end up doing. Right? I'd love to be able to go up and down the stairs without getting out of breath. I'd love to be able to walk on the beach without thinking I'm going to fall over. I'd love to be able to play with my grandkids or my kids, or gosh, go dance with my grandson at the event that your client did. I think that's so awesome. That's the reason you and I are talking here today, and kind of why we're doing what we're doing. Andrew, that's what I got for you here tonight, man. Closing thoughts that you have on your end.
No, I'm just excited to keep spreading the word. Kind of figuring out what your goals are and how do you get there. So just excited to see that spread to more people, and know that there's a lot of options. There's no point at which people can't keep growing stronger, no point at which people can't improve balance. So that's what I'm excited about.
And we will be collaborating more and more. You'll see Andrew on the podcast here, guys. That is Andrew Doubek, doctor of physical therapy. That's his story. It's, gosh, I don't even know, 10:30 here on a Tuesday night. And wherever you're listening or watching, thanks for dropping by at Hometown Gym. See you guys next time.